So, Anne, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you so much, Jessa. I'm really happy to be here today.
I love to start by asking what has brought you to this work. Like, why is this what you do?
Growing up in the way that I did in a queer, non-monogamous household, I saw the traumas and pain of marginalized communities from a very young age. And then being part of that community myself, I knew that this was the work that I had to do as just a pull, that social justice passion pull to be there and for people to know that they matter and they have support. And I
Yeah.
wanted to be that person, because I was the person that needed the support.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I bet there are some stories there. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So the topic today is sexual empowerment, and I guess I'm curious how you would even define that or describe it.
So I define sexual empowerment as being authentic to your sexuality. So whatever that may mean for you. And I had a friend bring this up to me and I was like, absolutely, 100%. She says, what about asexuality? I said, that is absolute sexual empowerment
Mm-hmm.
because you're being authentic to you. So
Right.
whatever that looks like, there's not a rule.
Right.
It's yourself
Right.
being safe and comfortable and voicing your needs and your wants and understanding them.
And I mean, I'll ask this just this is for cisgender and heterosexual people too, right? Like the people can,
Everybody, this is
right?
for
People can have
everybody.
barriers to their own empowerment.
Yeah, this is for the person who has an extremely conservative view on their sexuality, and it's all about I just do the missionary position once a month. That's it's for them too, because
Yeah.
that is sexual empowerment because they're
Right.
being authentic to themselves.
Right. So what are the I don't know, the benefits? Like what are the ripple effects of becoming sexually empowered? I guess, or maybe what does it look like if somebody isn't? What are the kind of barriers they face and the experiences they have and what changes when they step into empowerment?
So, growing up when I did and working with the clients that I work with, I realized that there is a strong narrative around what sexuality means and what it's supposed to mean, especially for cisgender and heteronormative folks. Now, not being raised in that, I saw something very different. I saw people that were empowered in their sexuality. I didn't even understand what it meant not to be until I was old enough to be exploring sexuality myself. And what I realize is a big issue is enthusiastic consent.
Mm,
Okay. There is a lot of shame, guilt, expectation that can lead to depression, anxiety, substance abuse. I mean, it goes on and on. It's a trauma.
mm,
Truly,
yeah.
you're not sexually empowered, and you may find yourself in situations that you one don't want to be in, two are blaming of yourself of situations or things that may happen. So there's a lot of parsing out what culture has showed versus who you are and how you can stand firm in yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm listening, anxiety, depression, abuse, all that stuff. But I am also thinking just lack of pleasure, right? And reduced
Yes.
connection
Yes.
with the partner. I mean, not
Exactly.
these things that
Yes.
like end up on the horrible list, but like really matter, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. 100%. Right. Like pleasure, like, and especially I think women's pleasure.
Mm, I suppose, yeah, women are less sexually empowered in general, right? Culturally, men are.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
So there is definitely an expectation around male sexuality, and I don't want to be dismissive of that, but women's pleasure is not really talked about.
mm-hmm.
And sexuality for women is, I think, a bit more complicated in what we're responsible for taking on from the culture about what sexuality means and sexual empowerment means.
Yeah. So could you speak to that a little bit? Like what are the sources of this disempowerment for us? I mean, I guess the list is could go on and on, but what are some of the biggest places this comes from for people?
So the largest place that it comes from my body of work is our religious nature in our community.
Mm,
Unfortunately, I know religion can be empowering for some, but the way sexuality and especially women's sexuality is discussed in the creation of the doctrine, especially of like Christianity. And we are very much a Christian nation, whether we acknowledge it or not, we really
right.
are. And what Christianity teaches us and the founders of Christianity is that women are using sexual powers to control men. Women are disgusting in their sexuality. Women are no better than the dirt on the ground. I mean, when you really get in there and you read what has been taught from the beginning of Christianity about women and sexuality, you can see how it has filtered out into every segment of our culture.
Mm,
Put on the TV, even, I was watching a show actually with my mom. It's an old show. It's like maybe like 30, 40 years old. And in this show, a woman is married to a man, and the man has to make sure that she can go get a job. When she gets in trouble at her job, the boss calls her husband. I mean, yeah. And so it's like it's so pervasive. And I even said to my mom, hey, look at that. It didn't even register, because it's so ingrained in us that women are less than, especially in their sexuality and their own empowerment.
yeah. And I suppose there's all that training, at least in a lot of religious traditions, that, sex is only for procreation,
Yes.
right? It's just something you sort of get done, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's not about pleasure at all.
yeah.
I mean, even the inclination for sexuality, right? The sexual desire is considered sinful. I mean, we teach our children.
So, how do
It's
people start
sinful.
to
Yeah.
unlearn some of that?
It's painstaking, because I mean, honestly, it really
Slowly.
is. It really
Yeah,
is. It is. It is. It's a very slow process, because it's understanding what the messages are. And then once you can kind of understand what the messages are, then it's, well, where did they come from?
yeah,
Do I actually believe those things? You test the reality of those situations, and recognizing that we're going to carry their in internal biases, whether we like it or not. It's like, it's so ingrained in us that even though I'm a sexual empowerment therapist, if a woman says, I've slept with 10 guys today, there's a bias. Well, why did she sleep with 10 guys today? But
mm,
if a guy said, I slept with 10 girls, the internal reaction is different. Why? That's the bias. That's a cultural bias. That's
yeah,
learning. So it's always needing to educate yourself, recognizing your own implicit biases, your biases against yourself, right?
yeah.
And doing like CBT therapy can be very helpful. Learning about other cultures can be helpful. Being involved in other communities that have different perspectives can be helpful. But there's a lot of unlearning. And then once you unlearn, then you have to learn what you do like.
Yeah, right. You gotta
Right?
you gotta replace that with something, right?
Yeah. 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 So it's unlearning and then learning how to voice that and be safe in your body and secure in your body to be able to do that.
Yeah, because it seems to me complicated or challenging. Like it's one thing to sort of intellectually understand that sex can be pleasurable and good and positive and all this stuff, but people must have these blocks to show up in their experience.
Oh,
Part of it's
absolutely.
thought, but part of it must just be, I don't know, being shut down or disconnected from their body or whatever it is, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. People are very disconnected from their bodies. And especially if you've gone through a trauma, but I think, like you said, is what you could even do is, if we just focus on maybe even more simple things, like what physical sensations do you enjoy? Maybe you don't have to even put sex on the table.
Mm,
Is it comfortable for you to have to have your partner caress your back? Are you connected to your back when you're being caressed? So it's like there's all these steps, before you necessarily even initiate sex and whatever that means to you. So like when I work with folks that are exploring their sexuality, intimacy and connection and body connection are the things that we do first. It's not, well, let's just jump to sex and see how you do.
Ah, right, right, right. An embodied practice, sort of to be present, connected to
Yes,
sensation. Yeah.
because many people just have a hard time with having their partner massage their back and staying connected and enjoying the sensations or feeling even guilt around enjoying the sensation. A lot of unlearning, you know.
Yeah, and what's I mean, when you're working with people, I guess I'm not sure how to formulate this question. Like there must be a back and forth between having these experiences and exploring some of the stuff and then processing some of what came up or going back to the head, right? Body head. Like
Yes.
you have to keep
Yes.
circling around this.
Absolutely. So here's an example. If I have a client who has a really hard time being connected to their body when they're intimate, okay, I will have them do an exercise where we'll actually say, we're going to take sex off the table. Like, we don't want to put any pressure here. So I say, do what you have to do beforehand, afterhand, but this is 100% about intimate physical connection, not going beyond the boundaries that we set right here. And let's see what that's like.
Mm-hmm.
So it might be uh a, we'll just say a back massage. They'll say, get a 15-minute back massage and give a 15-minute back massage. What really astounds me, and I hear this over and over again, is people really struggle with receiving, especially
Yes.
when, oh my goodness, they can give the back massage all day long,
Yeah.
right? But they won't, but it's hard for them to be in that space of receiving something without having to do something back.
Right.
So we'll process what that means. Well, let's talk. What was coming up for you? How is your body feeling? Where do you think this is coming from? So like it's over like many sessions before we even enter a sexual relationship, and we also need to figure out what that means for those people too.
Right. So when does this sort of cross over into shame, or would you say sexual shame is always there if somebody isn't sexually empowered?
I don't want to say that it's always there if someone isn't sexually empowered, but I would guess that there's probably an element to shame associated with sexuality. There is a message that you received somewhere for you to feel shame around your sexuality, or
Mm-hmm.
around, I love what you said about pleasure, like
Yeah.
shame around pleasure and sexuality.
So what's the antidote to shame? I mean, that seems like such a powerful force, you know?
It is. And I, the recognition that that's what you're experiencing is really important,
Mm-hmm.
because it does show up different than guilt. I think Brene Brown even said, you know, guilt is feeling bad about something that happened. Shame is feeling bad about who you are.
Yeah.
So understand, like, do you feel like there's something intrinsically wrong with who you are around your sexuality, your expression of it, pleasure surrounding it, receiving it, being sexual, how you choose to be sexual? How does that feel for you in your body? What thoughts are coming up in your mind? Right. So it's just starting from that place and recognizing that the journey is not a linear journey. The messages are strong
Mm-hmm.
and they've been coming at us since birth.
Yeah.
And even when we're in a space where we go, you know what? No, I am going to say yes to pleasure. I'm going to say yes to receiving. I'm going to say yes to this. You're going to receive 10 unconscious messages throughout your day that tells you that that's not okay.
Yeah.
So it's a constant, you're constantly counteracting this barrage of messaging. And I think that we need to be gentle with ourselves because we will fall back. You will fall back into that space.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you can't continue to work to improve.
Yeah, it seems like there's got to be some sort of vigilance around where's your mind going,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And then
Yes.
it's sort of a constant or repetition of rejection of some of these messages, right?
100%.
Yeah.
I would say to you, do you eat nutritiously just one time and then you're cured? You know what I mean?
Right.
Exercise
Right.
one time and you're in perfect, you're have a perfect body. It's the same idea. It is work, but it's going to be for your betterment. And the work doesn't always have to feel like this intense work.
Right.
It can be having friends and having support systems and talking about the messages and laughing over a glass of wine about how silly the messages are. It's just
Mm.
acknowledgement in the work there. It's difficult, but it can also be light,
Yeah,
but
it
it's
doesn't have to be super
continuous.
heavy. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Like you're not always going to go to the gym, but you might go for a walk with your friend. Like I just think of it like that. What are things we have to continuously do to be our best selves?
Yeah, and I
This is
like what you said about exposing yourself to other cultures or belief systems or, messaging that sort of
yes,
broadens that perspective.
yes, absolutely. And reading about sexual empowerment too. I mean, there's some excellent work that's been done around, especially around female sexual empowerment. It just gets you thinking about how the brain works. There's a lot of research around it. Okay, so this is how the female brain works around pleasure. Okay, so what can I do? I Women particularly need to feel a lot of safety for pleasure. So maybe rather than going, how can I receive pleasure? You can say, how do I feel safe?
Right. Right.
Step
I
by step.
I have talked to clients too, and maybe this is along the healing journey, the empowerment
Yeah.
journey, who can free up and totally enjoy a sexual encounter, and then they feel shame after. Like, I don't know, is that
Yeah.
on the way to empowerment?
I would like to believe so.
Yeah.
I would like to believe so. I think that asking what's happening in their body, and they may not have an answer, but they may learn that, okay, right after sex, I feel shame. I feel guilt. Okay. Maybe do I feel safe with my partner? Do I feel safe? Like just ask themselves a series of questions. For some people that feel that, and that is unfortunately very common, sometimes like a breathing practice right afterwards and acknowledging that you're having that experience
Mm,
rather than trying to shove it away, to be like,
yeah.
shame, you're here visiting me. This is an old message. This doesn't apply to who I am today, but I see you here and I'm just
Hmm.
going to serve you in my body.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if you would speak a little bit to marginalized communities, specifically with sexual empowerment, some of the extra challenges, perhaps, or benefit, ease that people have, or how does this differ?
I think so I'll speak a little bit to people that are in non-monogamous relationships. And I always assume consensual, but I'll
Right. Well, yeah.
caveat there. Consensual non-monogamous relationships. I think that they have it harder in the way that society really misinterprets what that means. I was doing a CEU training. I advertised it. I got hated on like you would not believe just for advertising a training to teach
Wow.
therapy. Like it was like people thought I was the downfall of society. So I was going to delete these comments and then I decided not to because I thought this shows how badly we need the training as
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
because this is societal reaction now. If I'm practicing non-monogamy, am I out in my community? Am I being judged in my community? What
Yeah.
if I have kids? Like, so I think that there is a lot of challenges of acceptance and understanding. And the part that I think that is empowering is that when people are successfully in these relationships, and I don't mean like our relationship is falling apart, let's have a threesome. I'm talking
Right.
about
Right.
really being conscientious about it. They've done a lot of work.
Yeah.
like the amount of work that I see people in non-monogamous relationships do is absolutely incredible. People that come to me saying, we'd like to open up our relationship. I've never seen people work more on their own triggers, their own issues, their family history.
Yeah.
What do they need? What do they want? So I think that there is a level of empowerment, and they're not reliant on someone else to feel empowered.
Right. Right. Yeah. Anything that's outside the norm, right? You have to
Yeah.
step into and kind of claim, and there's some empowerment with that.
Yeah. I mean, I'll never forget, I was running a group, and one of the group participants said, I've never worked so hard on myself as I have in this group. And this group is about non-monogamy. And it's
Right.
like, yeah, because it really does at the end of the day come down to you and how
Yeah.
well you understand yourself. And I think that in society in general, in more traditional relationship structures, we don't even ask ourselves if those structures work for us, make sense for us. It's just you, okay, here we are, we're dating. Okay, eventually we get married. Okay, now we have a kid. This is what sex looks like. This is what this looks, and you just go, this is how we communicate. Like, you're not asking these deeper questions because
Right.
everyone around you is doing that. That was what was modeled to you. So I think that that's actually deeply unfortunate, because I think a lot of people are unhappy in those structures, but they don't even know that they can break out of them.
Right. Right. Okay. And I think last question about trauma.
Yes.
If somebody's had trauma, how, what are the additional challenges they may have? What are the variety of challenges they may have in, stepping into sexual empowerment? And are there any particular strategies or suggestions you give?
For trauma in general, or a specific type of trauma?
I mean, I guess specifically sexual trauma. Maybe, I mean, I suppose any trauma could get in your way, but specifically
Like a
sexual trauma.
survivor of like a sexual
Yeah.
assault or
Yeah.
sexual
Or
abuse.
sexual abuse, childhood. Yeah.
Definitely, if you have not, find a competent therapist, and competent, that understands and can work with people that have experienced sexual trauma, because it becomes deeply ingrained
Yeah.
in the person, and about their own worth and what's their responsibility, what's a perpetrator's responsibility. There's a lot that happens in there. And I do want to say this, and oftentimes there's even can be a physical sexual response, even
Mm-hmm.
though you want the sexual contact.
Right.
So then you start blaming yourself and gaslighting yourself, and the healing becomes even harder. So you need someone who's trained in understanding all of these components to help you parse through that. So you've got to do the work around the trauma. It doesn't go away on its
Yeah.
own.
Yeah.
I wish it did, because you did nothing wrong.
Right.
Something you were perpetrated upon and you survived it, but no one can fix it but you.
Mm, yeah.
So
But there's a path
trauma,
between
yeah,
that's shame and doubt and fear and disconnect and everything else to sexual empowerment.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. But that first level, and then it's getting getting into a space of being comfortable in your own skin. And then it's depending on where that person is in life. Are they married? Are they single? Are they partnered? Like, what's going on? Do they want sexual relationships? Are they okay without like, we have to dig into like who they are and what they
Yeah.
want, what they value, subject to change based on more experience. But I would say absolutely a competent therapist to help you parse through that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Any thoughts on how somebody finds somebody? I mean, obviously the important word here is competent. Um, how does somebody know? What should they be looking for on somebody's website or profile or something to know they've got somebody who's equipped?
So you can ask questions. I feel like sometimes this doesn't like get out to the general population. It's like, you can, so let's say you went on like Psychology Today or Open Path, and you put in, sexual trauma, and 50 people pop up,
Right, which it will.
right? Which they will, because everyone thinks that they're competent in everything. It's not to talk bad about therapists. I am one, but we're trained to think we can handle everything, whether
Right.
we can't.
Right.
So I would absolutely ask for a meeting with that therapist, and I would kind of interview them, frankly. Like, I would think of like, what kind of, like, what is your training in this? What is your experience? how long have you been doing this? I would think of, have you worked with someone in this situation? If a therapist isn't willing to sit down and talk to you about those things, then they're not the therapist for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Truly. This is your healing journey, and that is their job. It's not to like sit there and give you free therapy, because that is a job, but they absolutely to be able to have a preliminary with you and answer any questions you have about them and their practice.
Yeah. And especially in something like trauma that's so complex, right? And really does require training
It
more
absolutely.
than just our master's level, you know, because
Yes,
I'm ready to
yes,
be a therapist, you know, a
yes.
generalist. Yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So, and there are people that do that work and are passionate about that work. And
Yeah.
you can even go on like LinkedIn and look up different therapists and see what they're posting and what organizations they're following. I mean, we have that accessibility now to understand a little bit more about what people are doing and what they're passionate about.
Right. Right. Cool. So
It's okay.
where
Yeah.
do people find you? What do you how do
So
they
you
get in touch or
so to work with me specifically, you can go to annrusso.org. If you want to work with someone from my practice, where we do sliding scale care, and we have folks that are trained in all types of different areas of therapy and different challenges, it's amrtherapy.com.
okay. And you are licensed where? Just so people that are listening, because they may not understand, you got to see a therapist
Yes.
licensed where you live. Yeah.
So I'm licensed in California and Nevada,
Okay.
and we have some of our therapists are licensed in other states as well.
Okay. Perfect. Well, thank you so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you.